What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, as well as a very silly Luca. And we're returning for the first time in a while to Survival Guide, aka Emily Whitehurst's solo project. As I mentioned when I began going through this album, she released an album roughly a decade ago, maybe like a dozen years ago, and then in 2023 released Deathdreams, all one word, on the Double Helix label. And eventually, I had been doing reactions to the first few tunes when she commented on a couple of them, so big shout out to Emily, also Kim, Michaela, they've commented on these reactions. I really do appreciate the interest in this artist who, as I've explained before, I discovered through her vocal work with Tsunami Bomb, a punk band going back to like the late 90s, early 2000s, I think. Either way, she was the lead singer of the band for a while. They've since reformed with like a partially original lineup, and I think, some new members. I've done some reactions to the spine that binds. I always say that because ties that bind is a more typical expression. But in any case, as I said, I discovered Emily's work through her work as Agent M for Tsunami Bomb, but I have been very keen to hear this album, which has this mixture of electronic sounds, but a bit of an indie, almost like punk feel in the attitude or ethos, her really incredible vocals, and just the unique character of the tunes and the sort of blending of some different stylings. So I very much enjoyed the journey. We'll get back to it. We're about halfway through the album as we return to it. And the next track is Lady Neptune. Neptune, or ultimately the Poseidon, the ancient god, whether you're talking Greek or Roman, of the sea. Neptune is, of course, a planet named after the ancient god. So I feel like there's a couple different ways the reference could go, but to refer to Lady Neptune would suggest a particular focus on either a female rendering of that persona and that reference, or perhaps a co-monarch of the sea, if you will. So I do wonder how Neptune as a proper name reference will factor in, and whether we are talking mythology or maybe astronomical, or I suppose planetary references are relevant. So yes, either way, I find it to be a very alluring title, but it's a bit opaque. It's not clear what direction it might take. I'll see what I can catch on a first listen. This is Emily Whitehurst as Survival Guide and her Deathdreams album 2023, and the track is Lady Neptune. Bit of a trance feel. Oof. That electric grit in the lower end.
She comes between us, but we can't see it. Scratching with pins and needles, saying the perfect words. Up overhead,
it's such a pleasure to get back to this album. So, a mixture of sounds. Again, a very low and gritty and electronic bass line, but also these soaring melodies, both more electronic and indeed trance sounding, but also by the end certainly like these heavy, like forte, like piano chords. Ultimately, her voice has a very rich expression. I know there were a couple comments earlier that like there seems to be some lines where it's more like true voice, some lines where there's more like effects on it or for like distortion on her voice. I feel like there was maybe both of that here. Either way, I think she sounds fantastic. The vocal performance in the middle of it, and yes, another one that has this dream pop type of feel, but also mixed with a bit of punk edge to it in certain points, and again with that lower end grit to it. I think that definitely adds to that feeling or that interpretation. But yeah, lyrically I'm intrigued because she's talking about like if she dies before she wakes and it won't all have been, I don't think it was in vain, I forget what the line was, but that it won't have been a mistake, but also that, you know, she's going under, and indeed, like lines about submerging or maybe coming back to the surface, it feels like it is playing off of the idea of Neptune being below the sea, but perhaps that not being something where you can't exist or survive. But she's also, what was the line about like vultures in the sky and we're still too fresh, meaning, you know, we haven't been dead long enough for carrion birds, but they're not going to have to wait that long, suggesting that, you know, that sense of death and decay isn't far away. But she also seems, again, more or less at peace, even if that happens, because whatever has led to that point will have been worth it on some level. So again, like Kim had a couple explorations of lyric content, and I know Emily herself commented on, what was it? I think it was the first track. What was the first track? Bad Little Seed, that's right. And there was a, you know, sort of integration of what I had sort of heard, but fleshed out to a much greater degree, both by Kim and indeed, of course, by Emily, and the idea of having like personal connotations to the lyrics, but some of the themes, you know, being experienced by many people, which, you know, I've talked about it in a lot of videos. Lyrics, their dialogue, they have a particular meaning as written by the artist, but then when the listener hears them, it's filtered through all their experiences and understandings and feelings. And so inevitably there will be lines that meant one thing to the writer but will hit on someone else's past and their experiences and their interactions with other people. And so I think really well written lyrics will have that double-sided nature to them where they come from a particular place, but those who've gone through emotional experiences will apply them in ways that exceed the literal meanings of the framework in which they were written. So I feel like there's some lines here where, you know, a lot of people will sympathize with the idea of feeling like they're right on the edge, maybe they're going to go under, but also having some measure of acceptance that, you know, even if that happens, it was worth it. You know, there have been rewarding or redeeming experiences along this path. So yes, ultimately I feel like there's some really cool metaphors at work, and I wonder how they all tie together. So yeah, another cool tune. As I said, I'm very excited to reconnect with this album, and as I did mention at the start, we're about halfway through. There's 11 tracks overall, and that was track number 6, so we're formally into the second half now. And when we return next time, it'll be, what is it, words, words, words? Yeah, it's words, 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 all as one word, which is amusing for two reasons. Like, one, it's just a funny title because oftentimes, you know, like words have very specific meanings, but to other people they can come across as being bankrupt or empty or sort of blurred out. It's like just words, words, words. And then of course to make that a song title as one word is just a bit of like, you know, a bit of a wink and a cheeky phrasing for a song title. So I'll look forward to that. Let me know what you think of this, and Luca, the horizontal cat, and I shall see you next time. Peace.